time to wake up. No more distractions, no more co-host review shows. Just narrating slasher books for slashaholics. I'm done with those damn review shows, done with being someone's co-host. I'm just narrating slasher books for the slashaholics. And when Jason walks in with his machete, or when you cross paths with Myers, or you dream of Freddy, whatever the tale, I'm gonna read it for you, cause I'm the 80s fucking slasher librarian Josh LaRue. Whatever I read, whatever you hear, there's one thing I'll promise year after year: you're gonna get the best of my best, this I promise you, cause I'm back in that fucking bloody slasher groove. Because the librarian is back in the slasher groove. The librarian is back in that slasher groove. That's a promise from Josh LaRue. Slasher books both old and new, written by me and written by you. Yup, now I'm back, I'm back. No more distractions, no more co-host review show. Librarian is back in that slasher crew, just narrating slasher books for slashaholics. The librarian is back. I even wrote my own take on Jason and Freddy. Started with quarantine and then I was ready, so I sent Krueger to space in celestial slumber. Then Jason went primal and the rafters had his number. My audiobooks have crossed 75. Now let's hit 100 and have a fucking good time. The librarian is back in the slasher groove. The librarian is back in that slasher groove. Just narrating slasher books for slashaholics. The librarian is back. The librarian is back.
Nightmarze, an original novel by James Acosta. Chapter 2. Carl slept through the night peacefully, and he woke up around 8:30 in the morning. He hopped off the bed and made his way to the bathroom. He used the toilet, washed his hands, and proceeded to brush his teeth. He was still not fully awake as he rubbed both of his eyes, still feeling groggy. However, that was nothing that a hot pot of coffee wouldn't fix. Before he could even get to that, Spot would have to go outside to relieve himself as well. Once Carl had finished up in the bathroom doing his daily morning routine, he stepped into the hallway, looked back into the direction of his bedroom, and called for Spot. "Hey, Spot," Carl called. "Hey, boy, get up. You need to go outside so you can go potty?" Spot got up slowly from his doggy bed and stretched his legs. He slowly made his way over to Carl, wagging his tail along the way. They both headed toward the front door, and Carl undid the locks. Carl hooked Spot to his run line so he could only go so far out into the yard in order to do his business. Carl couldn't help but notice how quiet it was outside. It was a bright sunny day, but he couldn't hear anything. Normally he'd hear traffic from the streets, but not today, not in his neighborhood. He found the quiet a little unsettling, but didn't give it much thought. His attention changed to something else as he looked up and directly across the street. He noticed that his elderly neighbor Betty wasn't outside on her front porch and sitting in her lawn chair as she normally did every single morning. It was always a part of her routine. She would sit outside with a pair of her reading glasses, her nose buried deep into a book, and let her own Chihuahua, Rudy, sit in her lap, just as her dog did so daily. Her front lawn had a big white picket fence that kept her dog from leaving the lawn. She would always wave to Carl when he'd let his own dog out to pee. Not seeing her outside was too unusual for him. He figured, well, maybe she slept in or was possibly out of town. He couldn't tell if her car was in the driveway because it was always parked in the garage. Carl soon dismissed the idea altogether when Spot had finally made his way back to him. Carl unhooked the lock from the run line from the pet's collar and then let the Spot back into the house. Once they were both inside, Carl made his way to the kitchen. He walked to the fridge, opened the door, pulled out eggs, bacon, bread, and jam. He was a man of simple things, so his meals were simple too. Once he ate his breakfast, he checked the clock On the wall, it was 9:30. He didn't have to be at work till 10:30. This gave his boss plenty of time to call into work ahead of time. So he got up out of his chair, which was in front of the kitchen table. He walked over to the kitchen sink and he placed his dirty dishes inside it. He always hated calling into work and tried to never miss as much work as possible. However, he knew that he wouldn't get into trouble because of this. He grabbed his cell phone that was sitting on the kitchen counter and dialed his work. Once he did, he heard the phone ring. It rang again and again, and so on. Carl let the phone ring and ring for almost 2 minutes. He began to say to himself impatiently, "Come on, answer the damn phone." His boss, or anyone else for that matter, didn't pick up the phone. Growing more impatient, he hung up the phone and decided to shoot his boss a text message instead. He scrolled through his contact list until he found his boss's number. He clicked on his boss's name and typed out the message. "Hey boss, I tried calling in to let you know I wasn't going to make it today, but you never answered the phone. So I thought I'd send you a quick text. Thank you. Please get back to me as soon as possible." Once he was done doing that, Carl looked up phone numbers for towing companies. He would call around first and try to get a couple of quotes and decide which one would be the best one. He found a company called Larry's Towing online through his phone and decided to give that one a call first and dialed the number. After 4 or 5 rings, no one answered. The phone didn't even go to voicemail. It just rang again and again. "Well, what the hell?" he said to himself. "It's like today's not my day to get a hold of anyone." He hung up his cell and decided to try another company. Carl looked up yet another towing company and with the same results again. "Well, that's 2 businesses that are possibly closed today. Surely they can't all be closed," Carl laughed to himself. He looked up some towing company that was located in another part of the state altogether, just to see if anyone there would answer. Sure enough, no one did. "Well, that couldn't be," he thought. That couldn't have been the last person in town. There was that mysterious stranger that had given me a ride back to my house last night. Where could that guy be?" Though he didn't ever find out who he was, surely he had a destination of his own. Carl sat in their chair for about 5 more minutes as his head was whirling with all these insane thoughts. It wasn't until he had one especially crazy idea cross his mind. What if he could determine for sure that no one else was left in this town? After all, Denver was a big town. If anyone else was there and hiding, he might be able to draw them out. So the idea was to gather a bunch of cars together in one place downtown in Denver. He'd park them side by side with each other and from one end to the other end of the row. He'd open the gas tank lids and slip in some washcloths into the openings of the gas tanks. Carl would take a lighter and set them all on fire, and knowing that an explosion would occur next, he'd book it the hell out of there. An explosion that big would surely draw the attention of anyone else nearby. If anybody cared at all about a huge explosion, they would want to investigate, or so he'd hope. Also, the first responders, police, firefighters, and ambulance would respond for sure. So he stood up from his chair, rubbed his hands together, and proceeded to head out to work. Carl started to feel that this was a dumb idea, that perhaps he should just maybe try to check the news on TV first. So he turned right around and headed to the customer waiting area. There was a wall-mounted flat-screen TV. He looked up at the TV screen and noticed it was off. Carl walked over to the coffee maker stand and grabbed the remote control. He aimed it at the TV and clicked the power button. A second later, the TV was on. What he was looking for was the TV news station. Carl channel surfed and clicked past cartoons, sitcoms, a soap opera on one, and a few different movies on another. However, he didn't see any single news channel on at all, and before the channels could continue onward, it stopped at channel 1 again. He went to about 30 channels. Carl threw the remote down onto the floor once more, feeling frustrated. He wanted some type of answer, and yet he wasn't getting a single one. Carl decided he was going to try and pull off his crazy idea. However, he figured it would take too much time to line each car up in a row and blow them up. Instead, he would completely destroy a car dealership instead. Again, if there were any first responders, they'd come right away. So he bolted out of work and hopped back onto the bike, and he made his way to the first gas station he could find. As usual, there wasn't anyone to be found. So Carl figured maybe he didn't have to worry about paying cash. Carl parked the bike, went inside the store, and grabbed 2 empty gasoline containers on one of the shelves. He also grabbed a few snacks and a few beers in the process. As Carl did, he stopped for a second and thought, well, if no one else is here, how are things still operational? No one's here to run things. Though he couldn't explain why things were still running, he was at least grateful that his beers were still cold. The other problem was trying to figure out how to use the pump without having to pay for it. So holding everything in one hand and using the other to check out the cashier's computer, Carl scanned the screen until he saw the access pump prompt on the computer screen. He clicked it using the mouse and gave the OK to use the pump. Once that was done, he walked out and headed back to the bike. He managed to stow away the beers in a small compartment on the back of the bike, and he proceeded to start filling up both of the gasoline containers full of gas. Once they were both full, he strapped them down tightly on the back of the bike. He fired up his bike and took off. Carl's next destination was the first car dealership that he would find downtown, Denver. Once he found the one that he desired, he parked his bike across the street and loosened the straps of the gasoline containers. Once he had one in each hand, he made his way to the dealership. The entire place was also abandoned, and the silence was very deafening. Carl made his way to the center of the car lot. There were already several vehicles parked nearly in a row, so that this was going to be easy. He opened the first container up, and he doused every vehicle that he could with gasoline. When he was younger, around 13 years old, his father made him join the Boy Scouts. One lesson they taught him was signal fires. They taught the one that mattered most, how to send out smoke signals or fires to try to gain one or a party's attention. Taking what he learned from this, it was time to put it all into practice. Carl tried to spread it out evenly to each vehicle. He found he was satisfied with the amount doused, so he walked into the main building of the car dealership. The display room was empty, but that didn't matter. Carl walked throughout the area while pouring even more gasoline on the floor. He went to each office and poured it all over the desks. Once the first container was empty, Carl went back outside for the second fuel container. He poured the fluid all along the sides of the building. After emptying the container, he pulled out a few rags that he grabbed at his workplace and a lighter that he had grabbed from the gas station. Carl walked inside the car lot building and lit the rag on fire and threw it into the gasoline-covered floor. The flame lit the gasoline trail and the flames spread everywhere. Carl ran the hell out of the building. On his way out, he also lit up another gas-soaked rag and dropped it on the gas-covered lot. Carl booked it all the way back to the other side of the street. He sat back on the bike and watched the dealership burn. He grabbed a beer out of the compartment and cracked it open. As he was sipping on the beer, a huge explosion went off at the dealership. Big black smoke reached into the air. Orange-hot flames bursted high into the air as well. All this would be significant enough to warrant first responders. Now we play the waiting game, Carl said to himself aloud. He waited and waited for what felt like 2 or 3 hours as he watched the place burn, but no one came. No police, no fire department, no emergency management service of any importance. Carl grew tired of waiting, and he was getting hungry and remembered that he had been alone all day. It was also getting dark, and he realized that he was gone away longer than he intended to be. He sighed in frustration and confusion and drove back home. Home did sound good, but he remembered that he wanted to check on his girlfriend's house just in case. She might be there, though he had his doubts. Carl peeled off in the direction of her house and arrived about 30 minutes later. He shut the bike off and made his way to the front door. He didn't even bother knocking, just walked inside. It was completely dark now, as it must have been around 10 p.m., and he was growing really tired at this point. He staggered for a few seconds and caught his balance. Then he yelled out for his girlfriend's name. There was no answer, and he checked every single room in the house, just as he did with his brother. Once he realized that there was no one else in the house, Carl made his way back to his girlfriend Debbie's couch and plopped on it to rest. Sleep was all he was really thinking about, as it had really been a day for him. Spot came across his mind for a second, as the poor dog had been home all by himself for most of the day. Carl figured that he'd be fine at least for today. He grabbed one of the pillows that was already on the couch and laid it at one end. He took both of his shoes off and was ready to finally lay down and fall asleep. As he finally did lay down on the couch, he let out a loud yawn, stretched both of his arms, and then he closed his eyes. Disappointment flashed through his mind, as his experiment had failed to bring any first responders. He was asleep for about a minute when he heard a woman screaming out loud, and that it was coming from outside. "No, please don't do it!" The scream was soon followed by a couple of loud gunshots. Carl quickly scrambled out of bed with fear and rushed out of the front door, barefooted. Once he was out in the front yard, Carl looked around for where the woman and the shooter could be, but there was not a single trace of anyone. He looked up and down the street, and he looked around a few houses next door and across the street. However, there was no one around. Chills shot up and down his spine. Questions floated in his mind. He was too tired to think about them now. With his nerves shot and shaking all over himself, Carl headed back to his girlfriend's house and locked the front door. He grabbed a knife from the kitchen and laid it down on the coffee table. He fell back to sleep on the couch. He was now truly alone after all, but he still didn't know why. Okay, Slashaholics, this has been Chapter 2 of James Acosta's original novel, Nightmarze. And looks like Carl's got himself in a bit of a predicament here. I'm not sure what's going on, but it would be crazy to wake up and be the only person on Earth. So there's not a whole lot I can say. It's got to be an eerie feeling, you know. And he kind of went from 0 to 100, though, on the test, you know. To get a first responder, he just went and blew up and burned down a whole dealership. But I like it, chaotic neutral. But yeah, this was a fun chapter. I'm curious to see what's actually going on. So if you enjoyed it as well, let James know what you thought in the comments below. And if you want to support the channel, you can do so by becoming a Patreon member. You can become a channel member. You can order one of my books on Amazon. You can also get James Acosta's book, Murder Report, on Amazon. All that information is in the pinned comment in the description below, as well as ways to tip the channel if you wanted to. So, until next time, this has been your friendly neighborhood 80s slasher librarian saying, thanks for listening, be excellent to each other, and I'll see you soon.
The librarian is back. The librarian is back. The librarian is back in the slasher groove. It's time to wake up. It's time to wake up. No more distractions. No more co-host review shows. Just narrating slasher books for slashaholics. I'm done with those damn review shows. Done with being someone's co-host. I'm just narrating slasher books for the slashaholics. I'm done with those damn review shows. Done with being someone's co-host. I'm just narrating slasher books for the slashaholics. And when Jason walks in with his machete, or when you cross paths with Myers, or you dream of Freddy, whatever the tale, I'm gonna read it for you, cause I'm the 80s fucking slasher librarian Josh LaRue. Whatever I read, whatever you hear, there's one thing I'll promise year after year, you're gonna get the best of my best, this I promise you, cause I'm back in that fucking bloody slasher groove. Because the librarian is back in the slasher groove. The librarian is back in that slasher groove. That's a promise from Josh LaRue. Slasher books both old and new, written by me and written by you. Yup, now I'm back. I'm back. No more distractions. No more co-host reviews. The librarian is back in that slasher groove. Just narrating slasher books for slashaholics. The librarian is back. I even wrote my own take on Jason and Freddy. Started with quarantine and then I was ready. So I sent Krueger to space in celestial slumber. Then Jason went primal and the rafters had his number. My audiobooks have crossed 75. Now let's hit 100 and have a fucking good time. The librarian is back in the slasher groove. The librarian is back in that slasher groove. Slasher books for slashaholics. The librarian is back, even wrote my own take on Jason and Freddy. Started with quarantine and then I was ready, so I sent Kruger to space in celestial slumber. Then Jason went primal and the Raptors had his number. My audiobooks have crossed 75. Now let's hit 100 and have a fucking good time. The librarian is back in the slasher groove, just narrating slasher books for slashaholics. The librarian is back. The librarian is back in the slasher groove. It's time to wake up. It's time to wake up. No more distractions. They my own take on Jason and Freddy. Started with quarantine and then I was ready, so I sent Kruger to space in celestial slumber. Then Jason went primal and the Raptors had his number. My audiobooks have crossed 75. Now let's hit 100 and have a fucking good time. The librarian is back in the slasher groove, just narrating slasher books for slasher old and new. Written by me and written by you. Yo, I'm back, no more distractions. No more distractions. No more co-host review shows. The librarian is back.